Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Enough to Keep Going Weekly Games Podcast. My name is Agaskally Stamus, aka Game Logic here on Twitch. We're back with another episode. Tonight we're going to be going through our industry news deep dive. I'm sorry, I'm adjusting the cord on my headphone here. We're going to go with another industry news deep dive, and tonight we're going to be talking predominantly about the Microsoft Games Showcase that was on display today. We'll also be getting into a little bit of Microsoft news, because unfortunately, I think if you didn't know, some of the things that Microsoft announced before the showcase, you might not fully grasp the impact of some of the things that were announced and how they will work when it comes to pricing and cost and fees associated. Tonight, here with me, as always, I have with me the librarian Hashashin, DBQ Hams.
Hello, hello, hello. Let me categorize you in the right order as you give me the librarian introduction. No, we got a lot to talk about tonight, so it's going to be fun.
And I have with me the IT Hashashin, Osiris Prime. How you doing, Osiris?
I'm doing good. I didn't have anything ready for that, so I can't throw any tech babble out there right now.
All right, and you have me, who will be your host, a pilot, and guide for the night. We got about an hour of flight time from wheels up to wheels down, so sit back, relax, lower your tray tables to their down position, and let's get started with the discussion of the showcase. Leading things off tonight, Halo Infinite. I mean, do we understand? I mean, we assume that everybody understands the setup for this, right? If you didn't know, Microsoft gave their initial, I guess, Xbox, technically their first official formal Xbox keynote live stream a couple of in June, I think it was, which essentially was the equivalent. Well, it set the stage, I would say, for what would have normally been their E3 show, followed by PlayStation. Is that right? And then
yeah, we had a Microsoft kind of third-party stuff late May, early June.
Right.
And
then, which didn't go well. The alibi round was that they were going to do another showcase this month, which would feature most of their first-party titles. So, with the stage being set, let's go ahead and go and talk about what we were going to originally start talking about. Leading off the show tonight, Halo Infinite. The Master Chief is back in the house. Osiris Prime, your thoughts on that particular trailer?
Well, yeah. Well, I think it was gameplay, right? Not just the trailer. Well, pretty much.
Yes. I'll refer to them all as trailers, but yes.
Trailers.
Yeah.
No, I was actually pretty impressed. I mean, visually it looked very good. It looked excellent. Some of the they have the grappling hook now that he has, that he can like shoot at people and like what was that one game? What was it? People Can Fly, I think was the developer.
Bulletstorm?
Yeah, did they have some like mechanic like that where you can like pull people in or like shoot yourself to the person and then like hit them, or it was like as far as I could tell you can only like melee people. I don't know if that was just what he was doing or if you can actually shoot people too, like as you're like reeling into the person. But that looked pretty cool. He was actually throwing the hook at either like canisters or something, and he was able to throw those too. So that's kind of a neat trick, and he can hook himself to the environment. I don't know if you can do that all the time or if it's just like certain points. I think they only did it like once or twice during the gameplay demo. So, but yeah, that looked pretty cool. It had a throwable shield, it looked like. I guess you kind of had the bubble shield before, but this is more of just kind of like there's just like half of like a crescent shaped shield that you could throw out. So that's kind of cool. No multiplayer, which I was kind of bummed about. I thought they maybe might at least do a little teaser or something. But overall, though, I was pretty impressed by the gameplay, so it looked pretty cool. I'm interested.
So no multiplayer shown, but definitely multiplayer told that it's going to come, right? I mean, this is
They said in the future, which I would hope would be soon.
Yeah, let's go ahead and reveal that. But as the show summed up, what they said was that so this covered 9 of their 15 studios. So 6 studios were not on display in the showcase, which Matt Booty indicated. Who essentially, if you don't know who Matt Booty is when we first came to know Phil Spencer, he first kind of became popular. Well, he was head of Microsoft Studios, and then he took over the entire Xbox division. So his replacement, essentially, in his older position of head of Microsoft Studios, is Matt Booty. So you'll hear a lot from Matt, who heads up the game development wing of the Xbox division, who lords over all of their internal studios, their first party studios, but also manages and oversees the partnership with third party studios. So Matt rounded up the show by saying that again, 9 of 15. Phil opened the show by talking about 9 of 15 studios. Matt closed out by saying, you saw 9 of 15 studios that leave 6, so there is, and revealed that there is an intention to have another showcase later this year at some time before the Series X launches. So, DBQ, your impressions of the Halo Infinite
It's
thing?
good. I mean, it looks like Halo. I mean, that's I don't mean that to sound dismissive. It was. I think it opened very much in a way that was designed to play to Halo fans, right? You got a couple of grunts, right? I mean, you got your typical Covenant enemies right away. They dropped a Warthog in really quickly. Um, it didn't necessarily, and then it kind of started to open up in terms of some of the things that I guess that Osiris was talking about in terms of, the grappling hook and the deployable shield. Um, and then we saw a little bit about the main enemy who kind of gave a little montage, a little monologue in front of the screen. Um, he invoked the name Atrix, right? Who was in Halo Wars 2 as kind of the main baddie there. Um, this is it's obviously not obviously, but it's been stated that it's going to kind of conclude the Forerunner saga, so wrap up 4, 5, and 6. And it's supposed to be the campaign is supposed to be longer than 4 and 5. So we'll see what that all means. And if Master Chief remains the focus of that, or if we get some other characters into it as well. But given the feedback of Halo 5, I would guess that maybe they're going to stay focused on Master Chief. I think the one question that really does linger out there for me is, there was this idea of it being a little more open worldy. There was this conversation of it being you know, eh, the ability to create your own Spartan. If that comes into multiplayer, and that's where it's secluded, or if there's kind of a third mode in there, if we get some type of kind of big team battle aspect in there as well. So lots of questions still, but I think for me it certainly it ticked the right Halo boxes of if this was a world you're interested in getting back into, they gave you a reason to get excited.
Yeah, and so I didn't watch the IGN coverage, but that is the website that I went to watch the video. It was a little easier to navigate and find the thing than Xbox's own YouTube channel was. But I heard like the first 5 minutes of dialogue after the show by Ryan McCaffrey and the crew of Unlocked. And one of the things that was mentioned was that they did perceive what was presented as being open world. So there were a couple of points where you saw the viewport snap to a map, and you could see kind of your ability to kind of choose some options on where you wanted to go and navigate throughout that world. I don't know if it's complete open world for someone who's been playing The Last of Us Part 2 and found very frustrating the invisible walls and the arbitrary barriers that close the world in, even though the panache gives you a view that makes you think that it's open world. I'm if look, either make the thing open world or just like don't bother me with a map. Like I really like Destiny's approach, which essentially it has a map, but the map just has markers on it. It doesn't really have necessarily your objectives in all cases. It's a little more static, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, than a dynamic map. So I don't know. It was fine. Were you guys excited by the trailer? I mean, we're going through the motions and talking about describing it, but I don't have a good read from either of you as to your level of excitement for Halo Infinite.
I'll
Okay,
let you go.
I, I think that probably is the answer, right? Like neither of us are jumping on the mic to be like, "Yeah, this is great." Um, it, I definitely want to know, and I want to see where the story plays out. I don't know that it gave me, in some ways, having you know, it didn't feel like it connected very well to 5, like it. Um, so in a larger narrative piece. I don't know that it dragged me in as quickly as I thought it would. I certainly want to know because I am interested in that world, but it didn't make me I don't know. It didn't feel any different than Halo, right? Like, okay, I could play some Halo and still get the same vibes out of this.
Right, before I pass it over to Prop, this feels very much like the fourth or fifth movie in what was originally supposed to be a trilogy. It feels like that movie, that one movie too far, where like you don't get the entire original cast back, you just get like the one main character, and so you throw off in the new co-star. There is this pilot that's been introduced. Notice that we have no Cortana, which I mean any appearance of her or simulacrum that is similar to her or any type of AI companion at all. But we do have this new human co-pilot. I'm very interested to see if that character is kind of used as a surrogate for either the old squad platoon or the Cortana of old. And there's you get to see some nice interaction between the two of them. So you know, the first time that we see him, he's very enamored by his discovery of the Master Chief. But in this trailer, he is annoyed in his relationship with the Master Chief. So it's very interesting to see how that's going to play out. Prime, how did you feel overall? Again, trying to gauge your level of excitement or if there is any there.
I think the problem is I was never too keen on the story itself. I mean, it was fine. I think I finished most of the Halos, except for 5 for sure. I don't think I finished 4 either. But all the other, up to 3 and then, ODST and Reach. But I mean, I wasn't like, okay. I mean, they always seemed kind of the same. Like it always trailed into like the same. I always had that kind of the same vibe through it. Like you fight the Covenant, for a while, and then you fight the Flood, and then you kind of go to the end, and it's like the same, ending where you're just driving away. I mean, the story beats were fine. I was always more interested in the off games like ODST and Reach than the main Halo game. The thing that interested me most about Halo was the multiplayer, which didn't show. So I was like, okay, I mean, this looks good. I mean, it looks fine. The graphics look good. Like I said, they had good gameplay elements that were different and cool. But I mean, to me, it's just Halo. It's just Call of Duty with a sci-fi space marine instead of a regular marine. So it's like, okay, that's fine. I'm not dogging it. Like I know it looked cool, but it's fine for me. And just to go back to you guys had mentioned I didn't realize that there was supposed to be some kind of customization DB. I don't know. I had never heard that before, which kind of goes with how they started it, where you kind of see like the Spartan being put together, and then they kind of say, hey, become, and then they start with Chief. But that looked like a little weird. Like, why would you start it like that? Like you're gonna be the Chief, but Chief's there already. So I don't know if there's gonna be like customization, which would be like super weird. Like when you're playing the campaign, like you can have like a like a watermelon head instead of his helmet or something like that. So I don't know like where that customization was going to go. And I mean, obviously the multiplayer makes more sense, but I hadn't heard about that part of it. And then the open world, yeah, they show the map. I mean, I always thought it was kind of open worldish anyways, like even in the original Halo, like you had a big, open playground. So I don't know if it's going to be like now obviously you just saw like a little section of the map, but if it's going to like expand and you can just go back and forth like however you want, like whenever you want, or if it's still going to be just kind of those open world sections like for each level, or however they cut it up or parse it out gameplay wise throughout the story mode. So
well, ladies and gentlemen, episode number 153 will be brought to you by myself. For the remainder of the show, DBQ and Osiris Prime have been cut off due to their lack of excitement over the Series X announcement. I am actually excited about the Halo announcement. Look, I think I may be wrong, but I think this is a new engine for the game. I believe it's been retooled since Halo 5. I've always been. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Wasn't it Slipstream? I thought it was called, or something like that.
Yeah, I need to sharpen my pencil about that. I usually keep up with that stuff, but I've lost the thread on it with Halo. So it's a new engine. It's been retooled. Throughout this showcase, right, wrong, or indifferent, my feeling was I felt like I could see the apparent differences in an Xbox One game and an Xbox Series X game. I felt this was the first time that I was like, oh, okay, this is next gen. I can see the refinement in the graphics. It definitely had a better the games looked better than they did in the original Xbox showcase. I was glad overall. We haven't really got into how we felt about the overall show, but I'll just mention this while I'm saying that that I felt better overall about the graphics. In total, I felt much happier that Xbox treated this like their E3 keynote. That there was a panache and a style, and some bling on the presentation. It wasn't people camped out. I mean, I get it. I understand there's a pandemic going on, but it wasn't people camped out like in their kitchen in their apartment, doing a keynote while sitting down. So I was happy to see that additional veneer on top of it. I was happy with Halo. I am not the one thing I love the grappling hook effect. The one thing I didn't like was I felt like the kinematics on the melee were a little heavier and a little slower and a little more prodigious in like the strike speed. So I don't know how that's going to play out in gameplay. I want to say I can't remember if it was Destiny 2, but we've played some other game with a sequel where the melee kinematic was slowed down between 1 and 2, and we were also not happy about it. I can't remember if that was Destiny 2 or not.
I think it was Destiny 2. It was
Okay.
in the first fall of it before a couple updates.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And they seem to have tweaked it back and made it faster, more like the first game over time. So that's an interesting design choice. But overall, I'm what's that?
I was gonna say, was that just more because of the the grappling hook, or was it? Because I don't remember him meleeing outside of the grappling hook. I don't remember.
No, he meleeed on a couple of occasions, and it's an elbow.
Yeah.
It's an elbow strike.
Right.
So
Okay.
so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So one host excited, the other two hosts a little may. So we'll see how that goes on. Hey, I don't know that we need to talk a lot about State of Decay 3 because they didn't really show a whole lot other than that it exists. Did you guys want to mention anything about that one?
There's zombie animals in it, I guess now. I don't know if there's zombie animals in the first two. Well, I played the first one. I don't remember zombie animals, but the second one I only played like maybe the tutorial part of it, and I don't remember seeing any zombie animals. So maybe that's a new thing. I don't know, because that was kind of the focus of it. It seemed so.
Yeah, this and Forza were very much kind of atmospheric trailers. There wasn't a lot. There wasn't gameplay. You got some pre-rendered or maybe in-engine cutscenes, but I don't think we saw gameplay for either of State of Decay or Forza.
Well, like
2 came out what, 2 years ago, or is it 3 years ago now? State of Decay 2.
I've quite honestly I've never understood the whole State of Decay series. Like I don't understand its strategic positioning or why it's a big deal. Like it seems to pop up on the radar and then everything on it goes silent.
Well,
Never.
yeah, it's kind of a weird series because when it first came out, it was single player and everybody wanted multiplayer, and then the second one was multiplayer, and then I didn't really hear anything about it, so I don't know if that was good or bad. I mean, no news is good news, I suppose. So
Yeah, no, I do not know. Forza Motorsport, I guess the one thing I do want to talk about, again, looks gorgeous. The thing that concerned me was Phil, and this was right after Phil's stand-up part. Phil introduced the game by saying that the developers were early in the development cycle. So there's multiple things I don't understand. First of all, that they're early in the development cycle, to me, sounds like the game's not going to release this year. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I think the fact that they didn't put a date on it means that it's not going to release this year, which is surprising because this is turn 10 and Forza 7 was 2017.
Yeah,
Right?
it's been 3 years, right? There was none last
Yeah.
year. Forza Horizon was the year before that. So this is like they're the long tooth in the cycle. I then don't understand why. Like I'm pretty absolutely certain Turn 10 was one of the first studios to get a Series X development kit. So yeah, like, were there that many problems in having them reset? I mean,
Who do you want to send it to?
I think what it is actually they're doing the GT Gran Turismo route. Is they're going back in and scanning all the fabrics and handles and underbellies of the car. That is sarcastic, but yeah, I do agree with you. It does seem surprising. Like I thought that this was Forza was it was Forza 5 was a launch game with Xbox One. That they have been kind of lockstep with being kind of out there with the console. So I assume that this was going to be a fall launch game, and maybe it is COVID-19 related that things got back behind. But maybe there's other reasons too.
Yeah, and again, very curious on this because what he didn't say is he didn't say. I mean, early at the start of development does not sound like they were going. COVID-19 hit, and then they had to stop, reset, figure out how everybody was going to work remotely and pick back up. That would have been different. He said they were early in the start as if they just got started, and that I don't understand. And first of all, I'm like, what the heck else have they been working on? And I guess maybe what makes me a little curious is were they helping another development team out, like in some piece, but they're not like fully credited with that game? Like, was there, getting Playground Studios in? I mean, Playground Studios obviously is working on Fable, so that rumor has proven true. You would have thought that those two studios would have been working closely. Like, I just don't understand what else they've been working on.
And I guess the other kind of surprise for me, and maybe this is just because they're so early in development, but it's just called Forza Motorsports again. There's no number, so are they just starting over, or is that just because, like I said, are they, just because they're early in development?
I definitely caught that because I had to go back and like I kept rewinding to watch the end of the trailer because I kept trying to get the number to jot it down into the agenda, and I was like, oh, there is no number. So yeah, no, I agree with you. Very, very weird. Let's talk about Everwild. DBQ impressions on this game. This feels like it's a game a little more up your lane.
Yeah, I think this is the first one that I was like, okay, I could play this. And granted, I am interested in Halo, even if I'm kind of like lukewarm. But yeah, Everwild by Rare was announced previously. It is uh, it didn't really show a lot of combat. You had some exploration. You were kind of a magical being that could tap into the energy of the planet. You saw some healing aspects of some of the animals. Very kind of stylized adventure. Um, yeah, without knowing a whole lot about it, but it feels different. It feels unique. It feels something that I want to at least give a chance of because I am looking for some new gaming experience.
Prime?
I mean, it looked pretty. The graphics look really nice. I do like the graphic style. I don't know what this game is though. Like, you say there's no combat, but I'm not sure if there's gonna be combat in this game because it doesn't seem like it.
It seems like more. I mean, it's a. There were 4 characters shown on screen, showing a lot of taking care of animals using magic, which could be a thing. I guess Prime. One of my questions for you is: do you believe that this will be a 4-player co-op game?
I would think. I mean, I would think so. Just because, like you said, they had the 4 characters pretty much like in every scene during the trailer. But once again, I just don't know what this game is. I have no idea. Like, okay, even when the developer, I think she was one of the developers or creative people, was talking, I think before or after they showed the trailer, it almost seemed like this is kind of like a chill game. Like you kind of just go in this open world, and I don't know. That's the problem. I'm not sure what this is, but it looks pretty though. Plus,
Yeah,
it's rare, so I mean, they've had some pretty interesting games as of late. So
yeah, the chill aspect of it kind of had like a journey vibe to it a little bit in terms of some of that. But the 4-player piece, I think you could be spot on, right? They've got the code for it with Sea of Thieves. If they certainly have the capacity to do that. But again, it was pretty, but we don't really know much about it besides what they showed in kind of this stylized trailer. So
Gotcha.
maybe at the end they kind of showed maybe there's some kind of fighting, like with that big creature. I don't know if that was helping them with the resurrection, or if that was they're gonna
yeah,
fight
it seemed
that
to
you
be
don't
some
know.
type of confrontation. Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, we'll see.
And there was a big fish that threw up a bunch of smaller fish, and I couldn't tell if he had been eating them or if he was birthing them, and I couldn't tell if they were going to eat them or if they were going to take care of them. So there's that. So let's
See,
talk
now you
about.
need to play the game just to find out if the baby fish eats the mama fish.
So let's talk about a game that we can pretty much tell where it's going and what the gameplay style is going to be. Don't Nod, one of the most popular PlayStation studios from the Life is Strange content, is going to be coming around with their game Tell Me Why, which looked really very interesting from a narrative and voice acting perspective. Osiris Prime, did you have any impressions about this game?
Yeah, actually, I didn't realize who was doing it. I did have that Life is Strange kind of vibe coming from it, because I kind of caught I didn't see the very beginning, so I didn't get to see the developer. So yeah, it definitely looks interesting. It looks like kind of a cool I don't want to say point and click game, but because I'm sure there's gameplay in it, but that kind of adventure type game, like the Telltale games that used to be around. So yeah, I definitely will check this one out.
Very cool. DBQ?
First chapter's coming out August 27th. So on Game Pass. So yeah, for anybody that has Game Pass and is interested, you got a chance to kind of dive in.
Yep,
Yeah,
makes sense.
I'm interested. It certainly looks interesting in terms of kind of a narrative piece. Uh, yeah, I mean, you're right. We do kind of know what to expect because of its pedigree.
And I think we kind of talked about this too, DB, before the show. One of the few games that actually had a firm release date on it.
Yes,
Well,
that is very true.
ish. And that's a thread that I want to pull. So, DBQ, I mean, it comes out in a month ish. What do you think that means? And there's a couple things that it's disruptive about that it impacts. And so first of all, it's a 3-part game, as I understand it. It's a multi-episodic release. Don't Nod is hyper concerned about the negative criticism they've been given about releasing games that are episodic and them not having steady release schedules. Right? You get one, you don't really know when the second one's coming. So what they've dedicated to is having a firm release schedule. I don't know that they've dictated when all 3 of these are going to come out, but supposedly that's their plan, is to be open and transparent about when they're going to come out. Do you buy this game on Xbox? So I have a few questions. First of all, do you buy this game on Xbox One and then buy chapters 2 and 3 on Series X? Do you take the strategy of what a lot of people do is they will just wait, and they will wait until the whole thing's out and done and get the whole game as a single package? But the problem with that is then other people play the other thing and then it gets spoiled, and you don't have the same experience. I can't remember what else I was going to ask about it. So
That's
let's
okay.
start
We'll
with
go
that.
with that. So I will say that this is probably a really nice example of Microsoft's smart delivery. That yeah, you could play the first game, you could play the first chapter, potentially the second chapter in October, and if it's an every other month type of release. Um, but then because of smart delivery, you'd already have those games, and because of the infrastructure and the way that the Xbox One X to Series X is constructed, it will be relatively easy for a developer to carry over that code as well. So I'm assuming that because this is a narrative game, there are going to be choices that are going to carry with me through the different chapters in terms of some of the decisions I made about characters. And so I think that is probably part of the selling point of yeah, you can play that. You can continue to play it on your Xbox One X or Xbox One S, or you can with Game Pass you can play it on your new console that's underneath the Christmas tree. So I think in some ways it's it's an interesting example of how it's going to straddle a line because it has the ability to do an automatic upgrade.
Prime, why release Chapter 1 in August? Why not just wait until the Series X drops?
That's a good question. I'm not sure why. Well, I mean, this could be like their kind of, I guess, their bridge going from the one to the X. Obviously they got a lot of games they could do that with, but this is one where I know Life is Strange was pretty popular. It did. It obviously sold pretty well. But it's it's not a mega hit or anything like that. So kind of releasing it maybe before like all the storm of Halo and all these other games too, like all the third party games too that are kind of going to come out, or kind of give it a chance to get out there. Um, and, like DB said, I mean, you got Game Pass, so I mean, you can always go that route and you could you just play the first one. I mean, for me, I'm probably just going to get it through Game Pass, obviously, because I'll have it. Uh, and I'll play it like just as they come out, just because of the way I play games lately, last few years, it's a little erratic, so it'll work out better for me at least. So it's not too strange for me at least on this game, or how they do that release schedule. So
So I would say that it's not to jump over you, sorry, but that
no,
it's
no, you're good.
I think the August release is more about Game Pass than it is about Series X, right? That because this is an adventure game, it's also going to find an audience on PC, and so having it out on Game Pass continues to add the value and kind of build the case for Game Pass as they're coming into a launch of a new console.
Was this game labeled as both PC and Xbox?
I'd have to go back and look, but
Yeah, I'm
you
not.
know,
I don't know if the Life is Strange games have released on PC.
yes, they have.
Yeah.
Yes, they
Okay.
have.
All right. Yeah, I agree with you. This would be a nice thing to like. I mean, the PlayStation 4 swan song is Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us Part 2, right? You have two big meaty games that people can spend time with before they trade their console in and get a PlayStation 5. Maybe this game is that for the Xbox. Obviously, it's not as big as those PlayStation releases, but I agree with you, Prime. It's a nice thing where you go, hey, if the person gets chapter one, then there's an incentive, there's an encouragement for them to feel like, hey, this would be a really nice thing to go from chapter one to chapter two on the new console. I can definitively see the new differences right in the same, theoretically in the same engine. And I have some continuity of story bridging that switch over from the old console to the new, so I can definitely see that. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is just a re-architecting, a re-engineering, refactoring of the original game to make it play via smart delivery to the Xbox Series X. They showed some nice comparison screens. Some of them you couldn't always see what the difference was between the original version. Some of them you definitely could. So that was good. Kind of another thing like I did with PlayStation between PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4. I waited to play The Last of Us until the remastered version was on PlayStation 4. I think that's a perfectly acceptable way. If you haven't played Ori and the Will of the Wisps yet, you can definitely wait for the re-engineered version. I'm also going to blow
You
through.
played a couple hours of it, didn't you?
I'm sorry. I think I played it up till near completion. I'm probably only 3 to 5 hours from completing it. I think it's only like an 18-hour game, and I only have 2, maybe 3 hours left to go. I'm also going to quickly blow through Outer Worlds Peril on Gorgon, which is the expansion pack DLC. It's labeled as an Obsidian game, but they say that they've been working with Private Division. I have much more of a Private Division involvement feel on it, since Obsidian is obviously involved with the next game that we'll talk about, which is Grounded. DBQ, you've played a little bit of the early access version of that. What your feelings about the gameplay segment?
Yeah, Grounded comes out the 28th of July. It is kind of a survival adventure game set in the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids world. I did talk about this back in June. Um, yeah, it is. They showed a little bit more. It looks like there's some base building or home building, a little bit more of the multiplayer and story aspect of that. So it it really kind of plays into the backyard, adventure of Rick Moranis and his kids shrunk down, trying to make their way across, survive the ants and the bugs and everything else. It plays really well. There's some crafting in it. Um, I was really pleased with what I played, and I'm not a huge crafter survival player, but even just the familiarity of the landscape of like jumping off blades of grass and trying to evade bugs and grubs and everything else added a nice layer of kind of diversity and familiarity with it.
Well, let's talk about the game that was even to me more of a big deal. Let's give a little slow clap for Avowed, also by renowned studio Obsidian. This is a game that feels definitely like an Obsidian game, although it's not top-down isometric. It's first-person view, which I think, other than Outer Worlds, I guess, is kind of a newish thing. The first one that I know of, that I can think of off the top of my head, that they've done in a fantasy setting. Clearly, this is an Osiris Prime game. So, what were your feelings from the segment?
Yeah, well, I mean, even though it was just like a CGI trailer, this was definitely one of my top picks. You got that Elder Scrolls vibe from it. I think they actually might have shown maybe gameplay-ish, like where they show the first-person view and the guy's like doing his magic on his one hand, which actually looked pretty cool, kind of Doctor Strange from the Marvel Cinematic Universe kind of look. So yeah, I'm definitely excited for this one. We didn't get any kind of release date or release window, so it's probably a few years off. I'm sure this is one of the ones I think they mentioned it actually too, that this is the game that they wanted to do once they came to Microsoft. So yeah, I'm definitely excited about this one. I pulled up an article from IGN here. I'm sorry if you might have mentioned this, um, but it's set in the Pillars of Eternity games, is what I'm reading here. So
Oh, that's good to know. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think I played maybe a demo or something of those games before. So, and obviously, yeah, those are isometric views. So this is obviously a new first-person view. So they've done Fallout games. Obviously, their Fallout-ish game with the Outer Worlds. So I mean, if they do, if they can copy off, I don't want to say copy off, but if they can do like an Elder Scrolls type game, I'm all in for it. So.
Very good. Can somebody help jog my memory? Was As the Dusk Falls, or As Dusk Falls, was this the game that was, what it reminded me of was the opening scenes of From Dusk Till Dawn, when the family is kidnapped in the trailer by George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino?
Oh wow, I forgot about that in terms of the opening, right? Like all I remember is the vampire like bordello. So yeah, no, I mean it, it has a really interesting art style, right? It almost feels like Hotel Dusk from the DS, kind of this hand drawn but like slowly animated aspect,
Well, there's
stop
several.
motion almost.
I feel like that's a Series X thing because let's see, Everwild seemed to be done in similar style, and this to me equated to what I think of in my mind as cell shaded. It may not be that exact technology, but Everwild was like that. I felt a little bit like Tell Me Why had that style as well. It definitely has
Almost
dust.
like a brushed almost like
Yeah, like a
like on the engines
watercolor
like yeah watercolor. That's what I was trying to
kind
think.
of thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, there were several games shown today that had that kind of effect on them. But go ahead, DBQ.
Yeah, no, I mean this is it's from a French studio, right? I believe it's a visual novel, some type of kind of adventure game, visual novel like, but it's being published. It's not being developed by Obsidian, but it's being published by Obsidian. If I read that correctly, there was a secondary kind of developer there. So interesting. Again, kind of you know um, kind of diversifying the portfolio for Obsidian and for Xbox One or Xbox Series X. But yeah, you know, again, I'm glad that it's on Game Pass. I don't know that I would be a day one purchase otherwise.
Yeah, so just to go back to my From Dusk Till Dawn reference, so this is what looks like unfolds in this story is it's a story of two families, at least at the outset. One of them is just on family vacation. They're in a trailer or a station wagon or something. It's the father and the mother and at least one daughter. Their lives converge with another family of criminals who are knocking over a store. The father is taken hostage. I think they time jump from that point and show the daughter who has grown into young adulthood, then going into the woods and finding the home of at least one of the children of the criminal family, and engaging with him. And apparently, he's been writing her letters the entire time. Um, so it's an interesting story. I wonder if this is really a gamey game. Is what I would be concerned about. So it will be interesting to hear if one of us kind of picks it up, and picks at it either through Game Pass or otherwise. I think at this point I'll mention I believe what we were told today was every game that was shown in the showcase was going to be available on Game Pass. And I'll go ahead and jump to one of the news stories that I talk about. If you didn't know all of the things that were in the news cycle before you saw the showcase, you may not gather the full impact. But my understanding, and either you guys can help me out with this. So we are so basically, so number one, Game Pass now is inclusive of Project X Cloud. All right.
starting in September.
Okay. And then I think the other thing is now, at this point, you can no longer subscribe to just Games with Gold or whatever. It's all just the singular subscription, right? Which includes Game Pass, Game Pass, Project X Cloud. What I don't understand is there's still Ultimate. So what is that? Does anybody know?
Ultimate is PC and console, isn't it?
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay, so you're right. So yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say with Gold, I think for right now, I think it's just the yearly subscription you can't get anymore. I think you can still do the 1 and 3 month subscription of Gold, right. I believe.
But let's just say for all practical intents and purposes, you now have 2 subscription options. You can either get the console only subscription, which includes everything, or you can get the console subscription plus the PC subscription, which includes everything, both on console and PC. So the gap that leaves is you can't do a subscription that is PC only, which would be at some type of reduced price or anything like that.
As far as I know, yeah. I don't think there's a PC only.
Okay. Well, Prime, since you're on the mic and I know this game is right up your alley as well, why don't you go ahead and talk us through Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, which I have written into the agenda as Senua's Sage, which I'm sure that she likes spices, but I don't think that's what she's cooking.
I don't think so. So yeah, they didn't really. They kind of went through the former trailer they had real quick as one of the developers was talking. But they did mention that this is going to be in Iceland, this new game. And that's pretty much it. And they're just going to be kind of doing developer type of videos ongoing now. So this is the second game that I'm really looking forward to since I actually finished the first one. And this is it looks, well, I shouldn't say it looks good, but the video they had showed originally looked really good, but which is all in engine stuff. So, but yeah,
yes,
looks one I'm looking forward to.
Looks marginally better than the first time, and I think at this point now it is firmly in position where it cannot be thrown shade by all of the idiotic people, PlayStation fanboys, who are trying to say that Senua's Sacrifice doesn't look nearly as good as games that are already released. Yes, if you don't understand anything about software, a game that is already released will tend to look better than a game that's in development. Let's move on, shall we? Does anybody want to talk about Psychonauts 2? I'm amazed. Jack Black is actually a really good singer. I knew he was a good kind of like wedding singer, cover band type singer, but like he was really performing and belting that tune out.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's some Tenacious D fans out there that would tell you he's an okay singer, but yeah, I was afraid you were going to kick this story to me and I'd have to come up with like a Jack Black riff of singing about the game. But no, I read, right? His kind of psychedelic rock song for Psychonauts 2 fit the trailer really well. We knew Psychonauts 2 was coming. This is the first time we saw kind of some extended cuts of gameplay. Again, it looks like a pretty 3D platformer, right? I mean,
are any of us Psychonauts veterans? I didn't play the original game.
I haven't, no.
Yeah, so this is in no one's wheelhouse. So I don't want to interrupt you, DB. You can keep talking about it, but I'm also okay to move on.
Yeah, no, I'm interested, but okay. I'm more surprised by the next announcement than a lot of things coming up so far.
Well, why don't you go ahead and take that one away?
Sure. Well, look who's back.
I know, right? Like, can we talk about Destiny on a podcast?
On an Xbox platform, though.
That's right. Yeah, I know.
Being premiered on.
I left the Xbox in the dust and played on my 60 frames on PC. But the fact that Game Pass owners, Game Pass subscribers get all the DLC, including Beyond Light. So if you're a Game Pass subscriber, you also get the November release of the newest, expansion for Destiny. So I think.
Can I break in here? I'm sorry. Can I break in here?
Yeah, please.
So on this IGN article I'm looking at, it says the standard edition of Beyond Light. So is there like what does that mean? Is it just like added like DLC?
Yeah, no, it's not even added DLC. It's you'll get kind of a skin for your gun. You'll get an emblem. You'll get a ghost. It's
that's what I figured.
Add-on stuff. Yep.
So I'm gonna maybe I'm speculating a little, but I'm gonna differ with you a little bit. I think what the difference is that you'll get the in my mind, you would get the DLC, meaning whatever kind of like packaged, story that they have, you would
Just like
get
a base game, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Story
So
game.
I mean, we've probably talked mostly, or people are most familiar with like the Forsaken story arc and the death of Cade. You would probably get that. What you probably won't get is the season pass, which includes like your ability to level up and your skins and your unlocks and all all the things that are associated with that. That you probably have to pay for additionally.
That is confirmed.
Okay,
Right?
all right,
That is you are getting the expansions and not the season passes. So
okay, yeah. Yeah, this is pretty amazing. So, of course, there was all the talk that this is going to be in 4K, 60 frames per second. If you are on Xbox, if you're on Game Pass Ultimate, you will have access to this as a Project xCloud game and be able to play away from your Xbox, which is, again, is an interesting nit that I want to understand a little better, because I was thinking about it that if I'm a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber and I'm getting Project xCloud, why are they specifying that I'll have access to Destiny 2 on Project xCloud? That makes it sound like every game that's on Game Pass Ultimate is not playable on Project xCloud, and that causes me a little bit of concern. Look, I'm not going to be taking my phone away from the house and playing a ton of Xbox games, but I would like to just be clear whether that capability exists, because people depend on us to know what's what and to tell them about it.
The language that they used up to this point is that first party games or first party studio games would be playable through xCloud, and then it becomes a licensing piece after that. So
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it was ever said that like all Xbox games would be on xCloud. I don't think, not that I ever remember. So
No, that makes sense. But
other than the first part.
I thought you've mentioned before that like Madden is available on xCloud.
Yeah, there've been some other like third party stuff, but I mean, I don't think they've ever said like absolutely, everything will be on
Okay.
xCloud that's on.
So it's
or
not a
everything on
baseline.
Xbox. Right, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah.
do you want to take the next one as a?
Yes, I definitely will, since I actually played Stalker on PC. But just to wrap up the Destiny.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I jump in?
Mm-hmm.
I'll go ahead if you're gonna wrap up the Destiny one. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna mention the thing that causes me particular interest is, so I am my name is in the hat for Project xCloud, but I've been waiting for them to roll it out on iOS, which it is not yet. So I think you can play on Android. But I have not been pulled into playing on iOS. So that I am waiting for. If this is going to be this big bang in the fall of enabling xCloud, it needs to be on iOS in order to be a complete package, since you're going to have a ton of users who are Xbox players who run on iPhones.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, and I would hope that that's part of what their release is looking like for September when they roll this out.
Hey, go ahead, Prime.
Have they said when? I actually have two things. So, have they said with the September rollout is that out of beta or is that still beta?
They didn't say. They just said, I mean, if they're going to be charging people for it, conventional wisdom, not including Stadia as a data point, because that would be unfair, but conventional wisdom would be that they would technically call it out of beta, although, we do have precedent for things still being experimental in early release game preview, stuff that people are charged money for. But, I mean, I'm hoping this is the full rollout.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought about that just now. And then just my second point was these next, I think 5 to 6, maybe 7 games, maybe even a little bit more. These are all launch exclusive games.
Yes.
Throw that out there.
Yep. Yeah. Which brings us to soccer, which I was very surprised. I was personally surprised, and then sort of the tight coupling and relationship between the Xbox platform and PC kind of allowed it to make sense. So Stalker 2 is finally being released. It is coming to Xbox Series X. I didn't notice if this had the Xbox One and Series X badge. So there were numerous badges at the bottom throughout this conference. There were, optimized for Xbox Series X, which is a badge that is used to mean that it might be playable on multiple variants of the Xbox, but it has Xbox Series X. I would think of it as when we used to talk about Xbox One X. Xbox One X, Xbox One Scorpio enhancements. That's what that badge means to me. But then you also had, games that would say, Xbox Series X, and that's all they said. Then you would have games that said Series X and Xbox One, and of course games that would say, Xbox One, Series X, and PC. So it's a little, you got to really dig deep, and I would probably just say you just need to go out on the web and hit the developer's website to understand exactly what platform it's going to, if your plan is to not get a Series X, or if you're curious as to whether or not a game is coming to PC. Stalker 2 is coming to Xbox Series X. At first, that was a little weird to me. Like, why would they bother with an exclusive when their pedigree is steeped in the PC? I think Stalker 1 was eventually available on platforms, but it was not built from the ground up to run on consoles. It was built as a PC first title. It's a very slow, prodigious, methodical shooter. I mean, edging right firmly into the survival type of game, but it forces you to kind of manage a lot of things: ammo, getting through the economy, stealth, etc. It's not just a run and gun shooter. So I am interested in playing it. I don't know that I would play it on Xbox Series X, but I tell you what, with that Elite Controller 2, I'm much more likely to play something on the Xbox than say that I'm not going to bother with it unless it's on PC. So I'm very excited to hear that. Hear about that coming. Warhammer 40,000 Darktide was announced with a release date of 2021. Very interesting. They've tried the shooter route before and it has not proven very successful. But this, again, for avatars appeared on screen, which lends to the feeling that it's going to be a 4-person co-op type of game. DBQ, does it excite you, the notion of a 4-person co-op game in the Warhammer universe?
Maybe not so much, but I mean, I think that this is Vermintide 2, in the 40K universe, right? Because Warhammer Vermintide was the Left 4 Dead aspect of the classic fantasy version of Warhammer. So to build on that, to bring that into the 40K universe seems like a very logical fit. I've heard a lot of fun things about Vermintide, 1 and 2, in terms of its the classes and the co-op aspect. So potentially bringing it out of a fantasy world and putting it into a little more sci-fi aspect with 40K might bring in a different audience to it as well.
And look like a horde mode, so absolutely an excellent thing to drop if you're not going to have a Gears of War for a while. Very interested to play that. Yeah, go ahead, Prem.
I was just say I was kind of. Is there like a lot of humor in Warhammer games? Because it was kind of like a humorous tone with the guys like flashlight kept going out and just kind of other things.
Right, and then the mention
to me.
And then the mention at the end, that it was kind of like a captain's log reporting back to his superior, and then he was saying he had a squad going down to investigate, and would inform him when they got back, and then when they turn around and see that it's a whole horde of monsters, he goes, "Well, if they get back." So. We'll see. I don't know. There's a bit of humor, I think, in the 40,000 universe. I'm not a 40,000 expert. As far as I understand it, the weird thing is that there's a difference between Warhammer 40K, Warhammer 40,000, and obviously Warhammer Vermintide. That I am at least reasonably understanding that that Vermintide specifically takes place in a timeline kind of after the major war, where there's been kind of a reversal of technology. And it is after a lot of the events that people associate with that universe, so it's a whole thing. I don't think it's as deep as like a Kingdom Hearts thing or a Final Fantasy thing, but it's a thing for people who are really deeply into that. I just like the RTSs. Prime. Excited about Tetris Effect?
Yeah, I guess. I wasn't really sure what this was at first, obviously, until you see the shapes, but at first I thought it was what's the Nintendo one? I can't remember now. DB that they offer on the online.
So the Nintendo had the Tetris 99, right? The Battle Royale Tetris, and then Tetris Effect came out on PlayStation first.
Yeah, that's what I thought this was at first, and it's cool, I guess. I mean, I like Tetris. I mean, I'll play it, sure, but I mean, I'm not like super excited.
This seemed like a rhythm game.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Tetris Effect. Have you ever played it, DB?
Yeah, I own it for PlayStation. It's great on VR. it is. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of music that goes into it. The developer of Tetris Effects is, I want to say, who is it? He also did Rez, um, Takahashi Ishar. Yeah, I mean, it's Mizuguchi is one of the producers. Um, so Tetsuya Mizuguchi, who also did Rez and a couple other rhythm-based things. Children of Eden on Xbox, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yes, that this is it very much plays into that aspect of Tetris in kind of a kind of a techno trance type of dance mode. It's great. It's a wonderful game in VR. It's really fun. The fact that you could now potentially play it in kind of a co-op or a battle mode seems, it's a good Tetris. It's a really good Tetris, and Xbox doesn't really have a Tetris, so
Yeah,
I'm on board.
it seems like the reel was definitely kind of pointed at playing games with others in this time, right? All the camera views were very not production heavy, but seemed like they were more IRL kind of cameras. So should be interesting. You set down on a planet in a strange place. You radio back. You run around with a pack, and you wind up having, I think, the game called Gunk. The Gunk. Do I have that
You
right?
do, and it's by the Steam World
Yes.
developer. So Steam World, Dig and Steam World Quest, and yeah, like all that series. This is kind of the first time they've gone into a 3D space.
Yeah,
Most
it looked like it was on rails though. It looked like it was down corridors. It, again, kind of gave that impression of open world and you setting down on different planets, but it just definitely looked like it was cordoning you into kind of a linear progression. That was the impression I had anyway. Neat art style, harkens to No Man's Sky in its design and look, but I felt like this would be a game that would be limited in comparison to a No Man's Sky, and I was like, I think I'll just play NMS. I don't know, Prime. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I definitely saw like the corridor. You see the character running in literally like there's like walls like on each side or rocks, I should say, like just a cliff side or something until she gets to like a sort of openish area where there's like this big gelatinous alien thing or something. I don't know what it was, but I mean, it looks kind of cool. Um, look like more of I mean, obviously this is an indie developer too, so like that smaller type of game that you might see for like a summer what used to be summer of arcade-ish kind of a game. So I mean, it's still cool though. I definitely tried out.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that
I'm actually kind of excited about it in terms of uh, what it looks to be. It looks, it has a little bit of exploration. If it follows in the Steam World uh, genre, you're going to get a little bit of puzzle, a little bit of exploration, a little bit of Metroidvania aspect potentially to it, as well as she was kind of pulling out different sides of a wall. So,
so,
um,
similarities to
so
Deep Rock Galactic. I mean, do you think this is
yeah,
a progressive, a procedural uh,
I don't know. They haven't really
maze kind
done
of game?
anything procedural before, so I don't. Yeah, unlike Deep Rock Galactic, which is definitely procedural, this feels more like if it is puzzly, I wonder if they are constructed versus procedural in order to come to those outcomes.
Okay. And if it's a smaller game like Prime mentioned, then I mean it doesn't need to be procedural. I mean it doesn't need to have a ton of repetitive, um, of repeat gameplay, but just different appearances as you drop down to each one, and more complicated puzzles, or just more and more complicated gameplay to get through to the end would be sufficient. So, and it's funny that Prime you mentioned it's a summer of arcade game. Like I'm thinking back to my Xbox 360 days, and I'm like, man, we have come a long way in terms of what we used to think of summer of arcade and like what a summer of arcade game is now. Do we need to talk about the medium?
I'm actually kind of excited for this game too. It looks pretty cool actually. Just graphically and just gameplay wise, that you're kind of the psychic that can you know go between worlds and well, when they're running the trailer, I guess they say that they're rendering two different worlds at the same time. I don't know how that's actually going to work, or like if you can just control one at a time, or if you flip back and forth like on the screen. So I don't know, just looks interesting.
It has a feeling of like Control, but with like two personalities.
Yeah, I think the developer is Blooper Team, and so they also did last year's Blair Witch Project game, kind of horror game. They also did Observer from 2017. So they have kind of that atmospheric, suspense horror going on for them. So it's certainly the trailer seemed to invoke that.
It's supposed to be out this year, supposedly. Holiday.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch that. I should have mentioned Tetris Effect definitely also had a holiday 2020 label attached to it. Outer Worlds, Peril and Gorgon. I don't. We may have mentioned said that it was dropping September 7th, so it's a bridge game as well. Grounded 28 July, as DBQ mentioned. Destiny 2 coming out November 10th, 2020. It's a game that I feel like I'd be really surprised if the plan isn't to drop the Series X before then, and have that Destiny 2 essentially be a launch title. Be interesting to see. Anybody want to talk about Phantasy Star Online 2, New Genesis?
No, that's okay.
No.
Okay.
We're good.
Well, then we will continue down the path of the studio that I mentioned, Remedy, and the discussion of Control, and let's talk about CrossFireX. This is one of the biggest first-person shooter titles in the eastern part of the world, so very big in, I want to say at least China. I'm not sure, or maybe Korea. It's either China. I think it's China or
It was
Korea.
really big in China.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
It came out almost 10 years ago at this point, but it hit records in China.
Yeah, so to me, this is the Eastern world's PUBG, Fortnite, Counter-Strike. I mean, all rolled into one, but with a much higher degree of fidelity than some of the games that have become really popular here. What's very interesting is in the movement to bring that game over to the Western world. They are having that studio work with Remedy to inject a first-person a single-player storyline. I was hugely impressed and very excited to see that single-player storyline looks a lot like a Crisis type of game, where you go in and you get a suit, and then you proceed to be Billy Bad Behind and run around and wreck stuff with your little platoon going around with you. And there's interpersonal relationships and conflicts and things to be worked out between that main character and the rest of the platoon. It seemed like, I don't know if that happens just in scripted cutscenes or what, but in a world where there is no Crisis right now, and I don't include the remake as that, no extension of that story, very excited to see, that being done in CrossFireX. Very excited to see it being done by Remedy. Any other comments that you guys wanted to
add? Did you actually watch this trailer like all the way through? Because I could have sworn like they had like little bullet points at the bottom of the screen, and they said the campaign was going to be paid and multiplayer was going to be free.
Right. So I don't know. So taking away. So yes, they did say that, but I can't articulate how that relates to Game Pass. I don't know if that's applies to everyone or if Game Pass subscribers get. I think Game Pass subscribers get access to I think that includes Game Pass subscribers. I think that only includes Game Pass subscribers. So I believe if you're not a Game Pass subscriber, I don't think that the multiplayer is free to play.
I don't know though. I think it was.
Okay.
Before, like on PC, it was.
Okay. All right.
So it certainly seems like that makes sense. Like it's a free to play multiplayer, but the single player maybe is a reduced price or is in Game Pass to kind of get you into that world.
They did. That's right. They did say Game Pass subscribers get a discount. Yes. Yeah. So the single player is paid. And
sure, because it was kind of going all quick, and I was like,
yeah, it looks like a game that I would definitely pay for if it's above that kind of 80% score mark. Last thing shown was the final confirmation that the game that Playground Studios, the beloved studio behind Forza Horizon, who was bought by Microsoft in that deluge, convenience store grab and pack around that Microsoft did, buying up bunches of studios. They did.
They were the Doritos. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. So as Microsoft was buying Playground Studios, we were also getting the word that Playground was also expanding its studio and adding an additional development team. It has long been rumored in story that what they were turned on to work on was that they were given the keys to the Fable franchise. We finally found out today that that was true. We also saw in that trailer the exact thing that people had predicted and were kind of looking for, is that Playground Studios is a UK studio. The Brits have a certain turn of wit, and we saw that exemplified in the trailer as the fairy that we quickly fell in love with in the whole 30 seconds that she was on screen got eaten by a frog. So, do you guys intend to play this game? Did you play any of the previous iterations on Xbox 360? And were you encouraged, incentivized to do so again by this segment?
Yeah, I definitely will. I played the first two. I didn't never got the chance to play three, but I enjoyed them. So yeah, I'll definitely give this a try to see, just to see like, just to compare like how this is gonna kind of go between the old ones. And even though it was just like CGI trailer, I mean it was a very beautiful, very well rendered trailer, or graphically, graphic wise. So it looked really cool. So hopefully that translates into the game. And another one where it's just kind of go back to just Fable. There's no number. Obviously there's a different studio and stuff, so it kind of makes sense in this one. So to go back to just the Fable.
Yeah, I think it definitely makes sense to go back to it in some ways because of the way that two and three, right? They all happened multiple hundreds of years after each other. There's not necessarily a really strict through line. They happen in similar worlds in the land. I played two and three. I didn't play the first one. I am very interested in this, but I was very interested in this last year, and when they didn't announce it. And the fact that a year later that they announce it and all we get is a CGI trailer and not any type of gameplay means that I'll be very interested to play this in 2022 when it comes out. I think that's the bigger story to me, is that for something that's been uh, rumored and confirmed, cautiously confirmed throughout the industry for the last since last year's E3, that all we're seeing at this point is a CGI trailer, means that they're really still in the building blocks of this.
Yeah, I mean, really before, right? So it's 2018 was when they bought Playground. We went a year with the rumor that they were going to be handed Fable. We thought maybe we would see some notion of that, even a title screen in 2019's E3. We didn't. It's now rolled around to 2020. They've had 2 years to be working on it and developing. It is what it is. I don't know. You could argue that there should be more to show at this point. I'm not in a rush for Fable. It's definitely one of those things that I feel like, hey, when it's ready, it should be ready. We don't even know how many Series X's there will be to purchase at this point. I also can't remember if that game had the bumper sticker at the bottom that said it would be playable on Xbox One and Series X, or just Series X.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Yeah, so. But look, I'm happy to see the rumor confirmed. I'm happy to hear that they're working on it. It's a good studio for it to be paired up with. There are worse choices that can be made. I'm just happy to see it come to fruition eventually. The last thing that I'll mention on the showcase show is as Matt Booty wrapped up, we already mentioned that he talked about an additional showcase that would go down this year. He also mentioned that between Game Pass, backwards compatibility, who knows what else, that there would be 100 titles this holiday season that would be playable on Series X. I always enjoy, number one, the confirmation that the console's coming out this year, but I didn't heap a lot of value. I mean, I think that statement is valuable to some people who will be happy to get their console, and even if they're not playing new games, will just like the fact that they can stay busy playing old games on the new console. I don't know. Did you guys did that statement sell you on the notion of the Series X, or was it just kind of an oh by the way?
For me, yeah. I mean, it didn't. They've kind of said that kind of all along, like in their Twitter and their blog posts and stuff like that. That there's going to be all these titles and back compatibility, xCloud now, obviously. So yeah, it didn't really sway me either way. So. And me and DB kind of talked about this too before the
So
show.
yeah, I
DB?
would say for me this whole presentation convinced me of the value of Game Pass Ultimate. I don't know that it convinced me of the value of a Series X at this point. Um, I think to your point, Agasicles, in the beginning of, yeah, they do look great, and if they're running at 60 frames and in 4K, that is a real value add. Um, and if people are ready to invest for that, then I think they're going to deliver on that. In general, I think in some ways, I think that this was a successful presentation because it could serve both of those things, right? For people who wanted to see the sharper graphics and the freshness, you got some confirmation about that. For people who were not sure if they wanted to invest in Series X, they got confirmation that as long as they stay subscribed to Game Pass Ultimate, they're going to be able to play a whole lot of this. Maybe not everything, but a lot of the stuff that will get them through the next 6 months at least. So in some ways it works for both audiences, which I think was not what I was expecting. So I was glad to see kind of it walk that line.
Well, let's talk about the only news story that I do want to get into as we wrap things up, because we're a little bit over tonight, is what do you think about that statement? The big drum beats, the big drum beaten about Game Pass, the value add for that, in conjunction with the news story that Microsoft has discontinued the One X and the One S digital. So if you haven't bought in to the Xbox ecosystem at this point, and you're not convinced that you want to go with the Series X, your only option is going to be to get a One S with the optical drive, right? Which is a less powerful console than the One X. The One S with the optical drive isn't even sold anymore, is it?
Right. I think they were discontinuing both the X and the S.
Well, they definitely said the One S digital, but I think the aggregate of that statement is I think because the One S optical was already discontinued, I think this whole line now is done. Is that correct? Yeah, go ahead.
I think, I mean, the two pieces here is if the line's not done, I think the lowest SKU on that line probably continues for the holiday season, because it could be a very a very cheap entry point for somebody to stream something from Game Pass. I think
And just, and just to break it, so I am re-looking at the subtitle is the Xbox One S will continue to be manufactured. So again, a la iPhone, the line will now be the Series X, the One as the high end SKU, the One S with the optical drive will be the low end SKU. We're still waiting to hear about this thing that we think will land in the middle, which will be a less powerful Series X generation SKU.
And I think that's the story here is like the discontinuing the Xbox One X at the same time that there's enough confirmation from multiple sources that Lockhart in some iteration exists, whether it's got a disk drive or not, but it seems to be, the specs out there for it put it actually maybe a little bit under the Xbox One X, but kind of still in that price point. Not necessarily a one-to-one comparison, a little higher in some things, a little lower in some other things is how I'm reading it based on. But I see your face, I guess, so I'm curious on where you land on that.
Well, my gut feel from a product line management perspective is it should be as powerful as the One X or a little more. Again, we go back to the architecture of the Series X, right? I think we've seen already that that the way that the memory is built up, that there's a way to have a SKU that doesn't have all. I think the memory spec on the Series X says it was a weird wording that it's like up to a certain amount of RAM. And so the prediction is that when you go to a lower SKU, the RAM modules are already broken apart, so that if you back off part of the extension of the Series X, you wind up with a SKU that has lesser RAM. So I think I predict that's what we're going to wind up seeing. In terms of clearing out space in the product line, it seems to me what you would do is you pulled the One X and the One S. That makes a Series X at the top of the line with an optical drive, a One S at the bottom of the line with an optical drive. You did the One S digital experiment that had to be to confirm that there will be enough uptake on a digital only version. So that seems to be the thing that you would insert in the product line would be a Series X with less memory that's all digital.
Well, and I think that that's my question is if that middle SKU has a drive. Because if it doesn't have a drive, if it does have a drive, I think it attracts more people because it's a half step. But if it doesn't have a drive, then I think people who may still want to be playing some of their 360 games or their Xbox One games that they have on disc are going to have to make that choice to then step up a little further.
But I think that that's part of the Game Pass setup is that you don't have to. You can. I mean, Microsoft knows that you own that game. You can get that game delivered by Game Pass, and then you don't have to have. Now you've got a hard drive problem to sort out, and that's part of where the we rah about how much better Game Pass is than PlayStation Now because the games can be installed locally. They can now on PlayStation Now as well on console, not on PC. But here's an instance where, like the Nintendo Switch, you've got a storage limitation, and so there's a difference between having games physically or having games downloaded and having games streamed. Right, this would become a platform where you would like to be able to stream games so that they don't take up storage. Prime, you're not sold on Series X. You question the validity of putting the money out there for a console that you don't necessarily need. Would you be encouraged to get a next-gen Microsoft console if there were a middle SKU that were $200 less than what we think the Series X is going to be? And so it's $200 less than Series X. It's $100 less than PlayStation 5.
Yeah, I'd go with that middle. The middle SKU, as long as it was at least as powerful as the Xbox One X, if not a little bit more. I would think it would be a little bit more.
Because you're on a 1S. You're on a 1S now, right?
I got an X. I do have an Xbox One X.
Okay, all right, I got you.
Yeah, I have both actually, but I mean, I had the X first. But I did definitely have to be, like I said, at least as powerful as that, and I would assume it's going to be since they've discontinued that line. And you say $200. $200 from what though?
I mean, my guess. I mean, I think the way the war is going to come out. I know there's not supposed to be a war anymore, but I think the war is going to come out where the Series X is $499. I think the PlayStation 5 is going to be $399. My hope would be that this Lockhart thing is $299, and it looks like we may have lost Prime because I think he's frozen.
You really think that the Xbox Series X is going to be more expensive than PlayStation 5?
Only because I believe that there will be this middle SKU. I think what they will try to do, what makes sense to me, is for them to try to say, here's the most powerful console in the world. It is the closest thing to a PC for those of you who care about that. It's $499. That doesn't the people who want to buy power, that price is. I mean, where there would be the instinctive gut reaction, negative reaction to price, is if it breaks that $500 ideological threshold, right? Like, if the thing's $520, are people really price sensitive to that $20? No, but people have an intuitive feeling that like over $499 is a thing. So my belief is it would be more expensive than PlayStation 5 if they undercut it with a lower end console. What's tough to figure out is how do they feel about that? Are they worried about a $299 price model cannibalizing the sales of the $499 price model? But again, I feel like you don't have to worry about that because the people who want the $499 model are going to buy the $499 thing, right? They're not going to go for the lower end console.
Yeah, I think I think the people that are already committed to that aren't going to be as price sensitive. I can see Xbox matching the disc version of PlayStation 5, right? Like, I think if that discless version comes in at $399 or $450. But I could see them trying to match the disc version because it's the most one-to-one comparison, and they can still make the argument that it's more powerful at the same price.
I mean, so let me make sure I understand you, because the other thing that I'm remembering now that I think we've forgotten is, remember, PlayStation 5 is coming out with 2 SKUs. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there of PlayStation 5 SKUs that they'll match the upper end one, the disc version,
so
and the discless version may undercut the Series X and the disc version of PlayStation 5.
right, yeah. No, I think I'm on the fence. I think I'm still of the mind, though, that the Series X will cost more than the PlayStation 5. But I would agree with you that I think the lower end Microsoft SKU will go toe to toe with the lower end PlayStation SKU.
Do you think that they? I mean, I my hesitation there is that they feel like they need to make up market share. They, as in Microsoft, and so they're gonna try to. They're not gonna be more expensive than the PlayStation 5. They will come in at the. I mean, they will hold off their pricing until the last minute to come in at the same price. I
I don't know. It'll be curious to see how it plays out. My feeling is I don't feel like they need to make up. I don't feel like they feel like they need to make up my market share. I think they feel that the hardware is just a stepping stone. It's really just a showcase. It's really about Game Pass, and it's really about It's really about encouraging companies to bring their gaming service platforms to Microsoft Azure.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, right? And if they're going to be talking about numbers of sales and they're including Series X and Lockhart together in one report, to them it doesn't matter if you're buying the high end SKU or the low end SKU because you're in the infrastructure and you've got a subscription at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Just as I was about to ask, Private seems like he locked up again. All right. Well,
He's so frustrated about the showcase that he just doesn't want to talk about it anymore.
I know. I was really just holding on hope to give him a chance to come back to make any closing statements, but I think unfortunately we gotta go ahead and plan to get out of here. I'm sure that's gonna make Prime angry, but I don't know what else to do. So look, thanks so much for joining in for tonight. Once again, this has been the Enough to Keep Going show, episode number 153. This has been our news deep dive. Prime is coming in. I'm going to go ahead and go with the outro, and then we'll see if Prime has any closing statements. Talking about Pix Plays, next up is our GX show. Again, we go alternating weeks. We do a GX show, Gamer Experience show, where we talk about all the games that we've been playing for the last fortnight. And then we alternate that with a deep dive where we talk about the industry news. So next week will be a GX show. The Pix Plays assignment. Here it is, kids. In previous decades of game design, characters, much as in comic books, were often static from sequel to sequel, but over time that has changed and characters often grow up between sequels. With The Last of Us 2, there's been character aging and progression. And Ellie... What? And the Ellie we have seen... I think that's supposed to be Aloy. And the Aloy we have seen in previews is also more confident, a leader that has come into her own. My point being, there's been character progression in Ellie from Last of Us to Last of Us 2. We are also seeing indications that there will also be character progression from Aloy in Horizon Zero Dawn and whatever the sequel is called. I know that it has a name, I just can't remember it off the top of my head. It's not just Horizon Zero H2. A leader that is coming to her. Find and play a game sequel where the character has progressed into their own epoch in terms of character development and or age. And remember, we don't have to play Pix Plays. We get to do Pix Plays. It's an opportunity, people. It's a privilege. I will be continuing, or have continued, playing through The Last of Us Part 2 from our last GX show. DBQ says that he's going to be playing Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, or he may be playing Telltale's The Walking Dead, which has a very different... I mean, it's clearly different from where you start with Clementine and where she ends up at the end. So that's a good meaty one to talk about character progression. Anyway, next week that GX show is going to be hosted by Swissguard, who's not here tonight, and will be co-hosted by myself and DBQ. Unfortunately, Osiris Prime will not be able to be with us next week. So it may be a while before you are able to see him again. I'm not sure exactly what the schedule has. But look, that's going to do it for tonight. Thanks again, everybody, for joining in. We appreciate you. For those of you watching the archive version of the show out on the YouTube channel, we appreciate you as well. Please feel free to like the video and subscribe to the E2KG Network channel on YouTube so that you can just be notified whenever we post new content. Prime, very quickly, before you freeze up again, did you have any closing remarks? We're on the outro and getting out of here.
No, you better just go before I shut down again.
Okay.
My computer's acting up.
Well, on behalf of the E2KG Network, thanks very much for joining in tonight. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. Play the games that you like, and come here to talk about the games that you love. That's going to do it for us. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good gaming. We're out of here.